Welcome to the recap of the second trading day for this funded Apex Trader account. If you're interested in learning more about Apex Trader, where you can trade with a prop firm's money and keep most of the profits for yourself, check out the link in the description. So I wanted to quickly show this account balance page, and I'll be doing this at the beginning of all videos going forward. Basically, we grew the account to 50,457 after the first day of trading, which moved our auto liquidate threshold to 47,957. If the account ever drops below this figure, the account will be automatically closed, so we have a $2,500 buffer. You can keep track of the account value and auto liquidate threshold here on the bottom left of the screen. So I started the morning without live futures prices on TradingView. I had to fix something with Tradevate, which was where I get my market data from. So for this first trade, I actually used a SPY chart since it mirrors the S&P futures chart for the most part, and I just flipped back and forth to place orders at the proper levels. Not ideal, but it works. So this trade was pretty straightforward. There was a clear resistance level for the morning around 38.6750. Stochastic RSI was overbought. There was bearish divergence on the accumulation distribution line, where price was making higher lows and AD was making lower lows. An upper VWAP band could act as resistance, so I went short here. My thesis played out perfectly. Price rejected off the upper VWAP band and dropped back towards demand, hitting my $250 profit target. The live market data feed was re-established shortly after this last trade, so I'm back to the proper S&P futures chart now. So stochastic RSI is overbought. There's once again bearish divergence on the AD line, where AD is making lower highs and price is making higher highs. So I decided to go short at the upper VWAP band. In hindsight, I was so close to supply that I should have just entered at the supply zone, so I think I was a bit too eager here, and I ended up paying for it. I eventually averaged down at the start of the supply zone, which wasn't smart because it wasn't clear where in the supply zone sellers would start stepping in. I didn't have the risk tolerance to set my stop loss at the top of the supply zone, so I ended up getting stopped out as buyers pushed price further into the zone, and I took a big loss here. So trade 3, same setup as the previous trade, but now finally seeing sellers start to come through. So I entered another short position in the supply zone. This should have been my first entry, not the previous one. So price ends up consolidating for a little too long for comfort inside the supply zone, so I decided to cut this trade short for a small $50 profit. And of course, after I close the position, sellers eventually show up and price gets rejected out of the supply zone. If I hadn't taken such a big loss in the previous trade, I might have stayed in this one for a little longer. Trade 4 was pretty simple. I went long at VWAP since stochastic RSI was oversold, and I wanted to play a bounce off of VWAP. I knew this was a little risky, so I decided to lower my take profit level as I expected the 21 EMA to act as resistance, and this ended up happening. Price continued to drop, and I decided to go long between the lower VWAP band and the top of the demand zone. Stochastic RSI was oversold, the bearish AD divergence seemed to have played out, and it was almost 2 p.m. Central, which was the start of power hour. Sometimes buyers start showing up here. So as the trade dragged on, it was evident that buyers were present in this demand zone. So I averaged down a little further in the demand zone. I was actually ready to average down even more at the bottom of the zone, but it never got there before I scalped out for a solid $300 profit, finally positive. Alright, this last trade is a little YOLO since sellers were pushing pretty deep into the zone, but I saw how strong 38.50 was holding, so I went long at 38.51. I had a tight stop loss and a tight profit taking level. I scalped out for a small profit. Could have let this one run a little more, but just happy to win a bit of a risky trade. So I'll let the price action play out, but the demand zone did hold as price was able to bounce out of there, eventually finding resistance at VWAP. Overall, I'm glad to have another profitable day of trading after trade 2 put me in such a big hole. I need to work on not adjusting my scalp's profit levels so much and let them fully play out. And I should only be averaging down if the second entry can be near the edges of supply and demand zones. Also, I can still be a little more selective with my trades as I feel like taking 6 trades is still considered overtrading. Thanks for watching. If you have any questions or suggestions, please leave them in the comments. As always, would appreciate a thumbs up and subscribe to be notified of the next Moon mission recap.